let me talk about this story. This is a wild story because I haven't seen it covered anywhere. And I'll tell you, I've been trying to cover this story for a really long time. So I want to talk to you about it. And I'm going to show you this thing that the US government put out in 2021. I'm going to share this page with you here. Here we go. Okay, check out this page right here. Because what this thing is the US State Department says, our country has an obligation to promote religious freedom. That's our whole shtick, right? As Americans, we support democracy, we support religious freedom, and we want to spread that to the rest of the world because religious persecution is wrong. And like for all the problems that our government has, this is a good thing. I like that we support and defend like actual religious freedom and not the evangelical version of it. So this is a good thing we do. And a couple of years ago, again, you could see the date line here, April 21st, 2021, the US Department of State put out this call saying, hey, we have taxpayer money that we use to promote our mission of religious freedom. And one way we're going to do that is we are going to promote and defend religious freedom that is inclusive of atheist, humanist, non-practicing, and non-affiliated individuals. And that sounds pretty neat. And basically, if you go through this, what they are saying is that there are countries where atheists are persecuted because they are outspoken about their non-religiosity, where they want to gather and have meetings with other atheists, but they can't because the government's going to come get them. So what the State Department was saying is that this is they call it an open competition here. You could see this. And they said, we have $500,000 available. We want to give away 1 to 2 grants totaling, up to $500,000 for a project that would help atheists in places where they are being persecuted. And I think specifically they said, we are looking to help people in certain parts of the world where we know they are being persecuted here. I'm just going to go back up here, but this is a good thing we're doing. And I should say, if you read through what they said here, none of the money is earmarked to promote or advance atheism. The US government doesn't give a damn about atheism, but they're saying we care about religious freedom. That includes atheists. And so if there are atheists being persecuted for their faith, well, we want to protect them and we want to make sure they have the ability to share their beliefs or live out their faith or their lack thereof. So it's not promoting atheism. It's about helping atheists who may face obstacles as a result of what they believe. And there is a report each year put out by a group called Humanists International. It's called the Freedom of Thought Report, basically saying, here's what religious freedom looks like in every country in the world for people who are non-religious. And like, there are always a whole bunch of countries that get these low ranks, or they're like in red on the map. And basically those are countries where you could be imprisoned if they catch you being an atheist, where you could be executed by the government for being an atheist. Some of you may remember a few years ago in Bangladesh, which is predominantly Muslim, people who were outspoken atheists were literally targeted by religious extremists and killed. And there was pressure on the government to do something about that and to make sure the suspects are punished and protect atheists who are being victimized here. So when the government's doing it, of course, we want to make sure that's not happening. So again, you understand, this is what our government was trying to do. They wanted to help people who are being persecuted, and they had $500,000 to that end. The question is, well, who's getting the money and what are they going to do with it? Because I'm curious about that too. I actually filed a FOIA request last year in 2021 asking the State Department, like, hello, tell me all of those answers. It's literally sometime later. I have not gotten any of the answers. No one from the State Department has responded. I was fully expecting they would respond at some point and say, we cannot tell you, but I haven't gotten that message either. So, open question of who's getting this money. But I assume that if we don't know where this money is going, it's because if you got money to help atheists who are being persecuted and you were trying to help them, well, if we reveal who gets that money and what it's being used for, you're actually putting those people in danger. So as much as I want this to be transparent, I do understand that it may take some time before the government decides the public can know where this money went, what it was used for, or anything like that. I understand why they would not want to go public about it. And honestly, this page I'm showing you here. That's the last you're gonna hear about the government saying this is the money we have available. There's no update. That we don't know. The government hasn't announced where it's going. Okay, and I just want to clarify. This particular page is about helping atheists, humanists, non-practicing, not affiliated people in certain countries who are being persecuted. But the US government does the same thing for Christians who are persecuted in other countries, or Muslims or Buddhists who are persecuted in other countries. They have grants available to help people of other faiths, non-faith, other faiths as well. So it's not like they're just trying to help atheists and everyone else can eat it. That's not how it works. So the reason I bring this up is that a year later, June of 2022, Republicans found out about this. It's been a year. The deadline has passed. Republicans found out they were doing this. And this is what happened. This is from a Republican politician. His name is Jim Banks. He's a House member from Indiana. He wrote a letter to the Biden administration and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken here, basically saying, we are writing to express our grave concern that the State Department is using appropriated funds to support atheism and radical progressive orthodoxy across the world. He was basically saying, hey, we just found out about this thing that happened a year ago and the deadline passed forever ago, but we need to get on Fox News because no one's paying attention to us. So we're just going to blame you and accuse you of supporting atheism. Like, no, that's my job. That's not what the government's doing. So he wrote this letter saying, basically explaining what I just told you. And check this out. This is amazing. You're not going to believe this. He says that by promoting atheism and humanism, which again, the government is not doing, but he claims they are, by promoting atheism and humanism, they are official belief systems. Sorry, it's not highlighting properly here. He says atheism and humanism are official belief systems. And the reason he's saying that is because if the US government is promoting atheism, they're endorsing a religion, and that's unconstitutional. That's his argument. Even though that's not the case, even though the US government is not promoting atheism or humanism. But here's the thing I want to show you about this letter. He says, Jim Banks, to be clear, atheism and humanism are official belief systems. And then he has a little footnote here. Do you see that? Do you see that footnote? What do you think that footnote goes to? Is it maybe a dictionary definition of humanism that says it's a belief system? Is it a humanist organization that says we consider atheism and humanism a belief system? Let's go to that footnote right here. He says again, atheism and humanism are official belief systems. Footnote 2. Footnote 2 right here. You can see this. It's a tweet, and it's from the American Humanist Association. Let us click on it here and see where it goes. Read that with me here, will you? Today, the American Humanist Association voted to withdraw, effective immediately, the 1996 Humanist of the Year award it bestowed on Richard Dawkins. Click the link and find out why. That link, because, we come full circle here. That link, which had nothing to do with atheism or humanism being a belief system, was just an hey, Dawkins, stop saying anti-trans stuff. Did Jim Banks put that footnote there? Did he not read the letter? Does no one in his office know how footnotes work? Or are they all just making shit up all the time? It makes no sense at all. But, okay, bigger point is Jim Banks wrote this letter to the Biden administration saying, hey, you're promoting atheism, even though you're not. And he said, he wrote in the letter, this would be analogous to official State Department promotion of religious freedom, particularly for Christians. Here we go. This would be analogous to the official State Department promotion of religious freedom, particularly for Christians in China. Basically saying you would never do this for Christians, even when they're being persecuted, like in China, except the State Department does help persecuted Christians and persecuted everybody in other countries. So again, does no one who works for Jim Banks know how to do research? Like, what is wrong with these people? So everything they're writing here is just pure BS. None of it makes any sense. But the bottom line is Jim Banks wanted to know who got the money, what is it being used for? We want to know now. We are Republicans. You owe us an answer. Even though nothing he says make any sense. And by the way, I'm going to show you one other part of this letter, which is, yes, atheism is an integral part of the belief system of Marxism and communism. A few weeks ago, the embassy in Germany erected a Black Lives Matter flag. Americans should be very alarmed at this. You got Black Lives Matter in there. What else we got here? Oh, critical race theory. Got to get that in there. I think DEI. Oh, here we go. Nope, that was somewhere here. Like, he gets DEI in here somewhere as well. Like, it's just right-wing culture war stuff he's just throwing in here to get answers. And here's the thing. He sends this letter. He gets attention for it. I'm going to show you this right here. Boom. He got what he wanted. Here's a Fox article that day he sent the letter. House Republicans demand answers from Biden admin over grants to promote atheism worldwide. Look at the quotes there. They make it sound like the Biden administration, the State Department said that. That's not what they said. That's not what this is about. That's Jim Banks accusing them of that. And then Fox using that quotation to suggest to idiots who read this stuff that this is what they were doing. So again, Jim Banks, the Republican, he got the attention that he wanted, which is what this was all about. Okay, I'm going to forward a little bit here because it didn't end there. Guess what? In August of 2022, a couple months later, he wrote back to them. He wrote back to them because he's like, how come you guys aren't answering my letter? Although we asked the State Department to answer a series of questions by July 15th, no responses have been provided thus far. He is so mad that the State Department won't answer him. And also he needed more money for his campaign, I assume. So he's like, you guys, I got to get back on the news. Can you make this a bigger deal? So it's kind of funny, but also the fundamental question of what he's asking is not a bad one. Who got the money? Where is it going? I would like to know if it's safe for the State Department to tell us. Okay, I'm going to forward a little more here because guess what? In February of this year, it happened again. This time, Jim Banks got some help. This time, this is from, who is this? Michael McCall, who is the House Foreign Affairs Committee chairman. Now he's getting involved in this because he's like, I deal with foreign countries all the time. And hey, State Department, why are you promoting atheism? He writes his own letter saying, I am very upset about all of this, and I want to know why the State Department's giving money. And by the way, I need attention as well. So we sent that to the National Review, which is a right-wing publication, and he got attention for it. But his letter is the same thing. Like, I have no choice but to assume those groups are not receiving, he's talking about other persecuted religions. He says, I have no choice but to assume those groups are not receiving the same privileged attention and funding as atheists, which is not true because the State Department gives grants to help persecuted everybody in a lot of countries. So again, I go back to all these Republicans in office. Why aren't their staffers doing the work? How come no one knows how to Google? I can do it. And like, who the hell am I? How come none of them know how to do it? It's like their office. Just go next door and ask the State Department what's going on. I could link you to things like, just to give you a quick list here. There was a grant to promote religious tolerance in Nigeria. There was one to help marginalized racial and ethnic communities in Europe. There was a grant to address severe violations of religious freedom across the globe. All of this is what our State Department's doing. McCall's letter was basically written by someone who has no idea what that program is or how it works or what the broader goal is, but he also demanded specific answers. And of course, Jim Banks, the Republican who started all this, also told right-wing publications like, I thank Michael McCall for taking up this investigation, quote, after months of stonewalling from the Biden administration. Like, no one's stonewalling you. They're probably not sharing this with you for a reason. Okay, why do I bring all of this up? Because Michael McCall, the Republican, the guy writing this letter earlier this year, last week, he wrote a follow-up letter saying, how come you still won't answer my letter? But this letter had a problem. Here's this letter. Look at the date here, August 3rd. So this is last week. He sent this letter and he's basically saying, we write to ask once again why it is in America's interest to promote atheism overseas. We're not doing that. And why the department refuses to produce certain documents that shed light on this misguided decision. Okay, so it sounds like, all right, he's just mad, he wants to get in the news, whatever. But here's the problem with this letter. Turns out the State Department did respond to these Republicans over the summer. They actually told them who got the money and what it was being used for. And this idiot, McCall, decides to blurt it all out in this letter. Not directly. He doesn't just put it out there, but he says, you gave all this money, basically. I'm going to show you this link here. Where did this go? I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So here we go. Notice that he mentions Humanists International here. And he doesn't say they got the money. He just basically yells at the State Department for giving them the money. He says, furthermore, even a cursory look into the operations and mantra of Humanists International calls the department's claim into question. I'm not going to get into all the specifics he's talking about here, but he's basically saying, you told me all the money went to Humanists International. Well, that group has an interest in spreading humanism, which is one thing they do, but it's not the only thing they do because they also help atheists who are being persecuted. Just to give you some background without reading all this stuff, Humanists International apparently did apply for the money. I do not know for a fact how much they received, whether it was all 500,000 or a portion of it. But basically what they said to the State Department, because I know it because I read Michael McCall's letter, is that they said, we have member groups who are on the ground in these countries where atheists are being persecuted. We also have a system in place to give these groups money and monitor what they're doing. So you can rest assured your money will be spent for the mission you need it to be spent for. There's no shenanigans going on here. And we have already systems in place to help people who are being persecuted. Humanists International told this to the State Department. The State Department apparently gave them the money to pursue helping these persecuted atheists. And then they're off and running. And then the Humanists International group is working to help these people on the ground. But the State Department doesn't want to divulge who's being helped or necessarily where they're being helped. Because if you told me, for example, oh, they're being helped in Alabama, in this city, in this place by these people, if I really wanted to do something about that, I could probably find information online that says when these people are meeting or what they're doing, and I could find these atheists. Like, I don't want anyone to have access to that information in the process of those people being helped. And yet this Republican is just blurting it all out in this letter. This letter is really long and really detailed, and it told me information that I don't think the State Department wanted to see revealed. But it's out there now because these Republicans don't actually care about religious freedom. They just want to, I don't know. They want to see these atheists persecuted because they would rather build up their culture war mentality and those talking points than actually see religious freedom executed on the ground by helping people who are being persecuted. So unbelievably frustrating. One of the other things McCall said in his letter is he was trying to trash Humanists International, and he said they work closely with the American Humanist Association, And then he said, like, well, the AHA files church-state separation lawsuits with the Supreme Court, and they're against religious freedom, which they are not. They support religious freedom for everybody, not Christian privilege. But like, it's, again, all culture war stuff. I don't know how much money Humanist International received. I don't necessarily know the specifics about what they're doing with it. I would like to know the answers to that in the future when it's safe to do so. But all these Republicans with the State Department, they were always like, tell me the answers now. I don't care how safe it is. Just give it to me. And it tells you where their priorities are. They're not interested in helping people who are suffering because they don't have religious freedom. They just want to get attention in right-wing media outlets. It should be infuriating. I wrote about this on my site, but what's upsetting to me is I don't think anyone else seems to care about this. I haven't seen mainstream news outlets cover this at all, and I wish they did, because I think this is a big deal, and I think these Republicans should be called out for doing what they're doing here.